Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Mitch Moss of VSiN Follow the Money will join us. We'll do a little bit of everything, some baseball, some basketball, some NHL, getting everybody's reaction to the NFL schedule, which is interesting because everyone seems to have a different take, a different thought, a different bet they like based off the schedule, which I do find fascinating. But we will talk to Mitch here in a minute. And as I've talked about, Memorial Day is one of those points where you can kind of check in on baseball. And hey, it's not nothing anymore. It's not April 15th. It's not May 15th. You're starting to, it's a little earlier this year. Usually Memorial Day is the last weekend of May, but you're usually at the point now, Memorial Day, it's 2 months, about 60 games, and you can kind of sink your teeth into something. So we'll talk some baseball here, and I'll talk some baseball in a minute. Just quickly on the basketball, I'm going to basically spend no time on Celtics Pacers, just a heads up. I'm going to spend basically no time until the Pacers can show that this is they're somewhat of a threat to win. I figured they'd win a short series. I still believe that. Even if the Pacers had held on to game one, I figured the Celtics would just figure out a way to win the games on the road and either win in maybe 5, maybe 6, but who knows? They look poised to go up 2 games to none, and they as this game is being played right now. And look, Pacers aren't beating them 4 out of 5. I know that I said the same thing about the Knicks, but the Knicks basically lost half their team, and the Celtics are much better than the Knicks. So Celtics are going to win this series, and if that changes, if the Pacers make this 2-2 or something, then spend a little more time on it. But other than that, there's really not much to say. Celtics will be headed to the finals, and there will be a pretty significant favorite whoever they play, and whoever they play. They might be waiting a little while because, well, the schedule starts. I think the finals start on the same day, no matter what. But I talked about it the other day. I really didn't have a feel for Mavs Wolves other than we are looking at a long series. 5.5 games was the over under, and the over was juiced. But I think this is going to be a back and forth series, just like game one was. Dallas strikes first. They steal home court. I would expect Minnesota to, and they look tired. They said after the game they were tired. Edwards said he was tired. Okay. I would expect Minnesota to come out and what teams usually do when they lose game one at home is absolutely rolling game two. So Minnesota -5 or so in game two. I'd be okay laying the T-Wolves. I think the T-Wolves win. I think they cover. And again, I think we are looking at a long back and forth series. I'd be surprised not only if Dallas won game two, but if this were competitive. I just think Dallas, it's just human nature where these teams steal one on the road and the satisfaction sets in of, hey, we got our win. Let's get ready for we'll take our split and we'll go home. Now give Minnesota credit. When Minnesota got the first one in Denver, they went for the throat and they buried Denver in game two. So we'll see if Dallas has that killer instinct. Luka, I think Luka and Kyrie, Luka's kind of he's a competitive player, but he's a whiny player and he makes them very hard to watch, but he's competitive enough. Kyrie's smart enough, competitive enough. He's been around long enough. And it seems like he's cleaned up his act a little bit this year where he's just less crazy, more likable, then maybe they do come in there and say, hey, enough of the house money stuff. We're coming here to go up 2-0 and take this series by the throat. So maybe they will, but I have to see it to believe it. I also think when these teams are down 1-0 at home, it's just human nature to get the 50-50 calls. You get a friendlier whistle. You play with more desperation. Desperation is something you just can't fake. So I would expect Minnesota to roll here in game two. And again, I think we are looking at a very long series. Picked Minnesota in 7. Not going to jump off after one game, but if you gave me truth serum right now and said, "Hey, would you jump ship and pick Dallas?" I might. Again, I worry every other night with Luka here, and he's been looking a little better, a little healthier. Every other night will Luka start to get worn down. But either way, I think this is a long series. Hey, when you lose game home at 1 like Minnesota did, you kind of game 7 sounds good. Where hey, let's steal one along the way. Let's hold serve and let's get to a game 7. I think if you're Minnesota, you'd probably sign for a game 7 now. So Dallas -150 or so to win the series. I think Minnesota strikes back and then we'll go from there in game 3. That will be a good series, a long series. So should be a lot of fun. It's weird. It's a weird series because, neither team has been around. I guess Dallas was in the mix a couple years ago, but that was, that was kind of a out of nowhere appearance against the Warriors where the Warriors beat them. It's just weird. I don't really like either team, Dallas or Minnesota. I don't dislike either team. I don't have any futures bets on either one. I'm just kind of indifferent to the whole thing. It's a fun series to watch, but it's not one where I have a lot of passion one way or another. Like, oh man, I really hope this team wins or loses. So keep an eye on it. Obviously, that is the series going on, and with Boston, Indiana heading the direction it's headed, and who knows? I'm recording this with a few minutes left in the second quarter. Boston's going on a huge run. Even if Indiana were to win game 2, I still think even at 1-1, look, Boston's going to win this series here. Just a matter of how many games. Quickly on baseball, some interesting races starting to develop. I think we all kind of assumed, hey, Phillies are good, but they're second banana in that division of the Braves. The Braves played a little better the past few days, but Philly just never loses. They are an absolute machine. And I know it's been a soft schedule, but hey, when you win 29 out of 35 or whatever, I mean, it doesn't really matter, soft schedule or not. They are burying teams. So I wouldn't count Atlanta out by any stretch, but Philly might be up for the fight here where they can actually win the division. I think that's a long race. I think they're going to go back and forth all summer. They have a lot of games head to head, so wouldn't count Atlanta out, but Philly's got good 4 or 5 game lead here in the loss column, and they're going to cool off eventually. They're going to play some better teams eventually, but when you roll out Wheeler and Ranger Suarez and Nola and that lineup, and Acuna hasn't been great for the Braves. Riley's been banged up. Strider's hurt. Atlanta might be vulnerable enough where Philly actually wins this division. The other race that is shaping up to be really good, both in the East, Yankees, Orioles, and that started to creep into my head as went into the games Thursday. Maybe is it possible? Watch the Orioles get swept by the Cardinals. Yeah, they had a bad loss in the playoffs last year to Texas, where they got swept and weren't competitive in that series. Is it possible we overrated the Orioles? Maybe the Yankees just running high in the division with that pitching. Who give Matt Blake, the pitching coach, credit. They just seem to get good pitching performance out of everybody on the staff, guys he never heard of, guys that are young, everybody. With Cole out, I mean, they haven't even missed them. They are the best team in the American League, and they're better than Baltimore because Baltimore doesn't have anybody as good as Judge or as good as Soto. And when Cole comes back, Baltimore doesn't have anybody as good as Cole. I know that's simplifying simplifying things, but I do think the Yankees are going to win that division, but should be a good race, a long race where, in September, that's still competitive, I would think. Baltimore probably, they have enough ammo, enough firepower to make some moves at the deadline. So those are a couple to keep an eye on. Texas is a weird team where, they won a World Series last year and they just got swept by Philly. They were on the other end of this Philly machine here. Nobody thought they were the best team last year. They just kind of snuck in. They backdoored their way in and they got hot. They won it. It was a weird year. Nobody thought they were the best team last year. Nobody thinks they're the best team this year. They're now 3 games under 500. So they're a team to keep an eye on here in terms of, hey, what direction are they going? It's very weird. It's very odd that a World Series champion, gets his little buzz, his little discussion as the Texas Rangers do. So keep an eye on them. They have not been great. Maybe they get DeGrom back somewhere down the line. Scherzer's completely shot. Who knows if he pitches again, when he pitches again. He's always hurt. Both of them always hurt. But look, they got their World Series. If they don't make the playoffs this year, you know what? It's house money, but that was one where you came into the season with all their young talent. You figured they might take a step forward, and who knows? They might not click this year. They have not played well. So we will discuss a little more baseball with Mitch Moss, some hockey, some basketball, some NFL. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. You can catch him on Follow the Money weekdays, 7 a.m. to 10 Eastern. It is the great Mitch Moss. Mitch, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
How are you, pal? Everything all right?
Always well, man. Always well. We were just talking before you come on. There's never a downtime. I guess a little bit once these finals end and, it's College World Series, NBA free agency, it calms down a little bit, but when you're betting baseball, it's props, it's bases, earned runs, strikeouts. It's exhausting, and it never feels like, hey, maybe NBA All-Star break, you get a little bit of a breather, but it's nonstop here.
No, it really is. That's exactly the time frame that you have, right? It's a little bit after the Super Bowl, because that's right around the same time as the NBA All-Star break. And then because of just how the schedule works out now, I mean, the only break really is a little bit after NBA, NHL draft. Finals, into those drafts, and then you get maybe July, and then football's here. So not a big window like when we were younger.
Nope, the window is shrinking, and think about like when these finals end for NBA, NHL. I mean, you're mid-June, June 20 something. You're 5-6 weeks away from the Hall of Fame game, so yep. It comes quickly. Let's start baseball futures. You're great with these. I love listening to you because you come out with names I wouldn't have even thought of, ever thought to look at. You hit on Snell, I think at 150 to 1 last year, who will not be going back to back this year with Cy Young. But anyone you're looking at, top of the board, down the board, it's a fascinating race. So take it whatever direction you want to go. AL, NL, Cy Young, MVP, and anything that's on your mind. Just kind of.
Sure. Well, we can begin in the American League. Like I'm looking at the favorites, and it's been basically Skubal and Corbin Burns the entire time. And, Skubal's off to a really good start, and his number has been short the entire time based on how he was last year. Projections for this year kind of been unbettable the entire time. And now I'm looking in that plus 175 range. Burns, if he stays healthy the whole year, he's going to be tough to beat because he's going to put up really good numbers. He's going to have a lot of strikeouts. He'll have the good metrics overall. I don't know what to do, Will, with the trio of starters that you have in Seattle. Like that's kind of like just throw a dart, in my opinion. If I had to take one, I'd probably take George Kirby over Castillo and Gilbert. But I also think that they might kind of cannibalize each other at the end of the season, three guys off the same team. But when you look at like Fangraphs projections and Cy Young stuff, Kirby has been a guy that they've had basically projecting out as a top two, top three guy finishing for the Cy Young Award a lot of the season. And then you have to decide like what pitchers are real, what's sustainable, and what's not in the American League. And if you think they're sustainable, are they still worth a bet? Tanner Houck is an example for the Red Sox, and he's 27 years old. You know, he's by far. I'll knock on wood because I have a little bit of him at big numbers here, but he's had the potential. He's had stuff, never really panned out so far. Come back, you can tell right away. Maybe this is going to be his career year and it's going to take off. Well, I grabbed him. You know, was it an overreaction? Maybe these are going to be losing tickets. That can easily happen. But I grabbed him at 200 and 100 to 1 early on. He's 25 to 1 right now. Some books 12 to 1 at DK. He leads all of Major League Baseball starting pitchers in WAR, and overall his numbers are really, really good. Sub-2 ERA. The FIP is just over a 2. Ks per 9 about 8.5. A win-loss is not going to matter to me. I don't think that matters to voters really anymore either. Can he do? It's been fun for him for 2 months. Can a guy like Tanner Houck or another guy like Seth Lugo is a name I'll bring up here, who has dropped to 25 to 1 in that range? Phenomenal numbers. Can they keep it up for 4 more months? That's the big question. If they can be somewhere close to where they're at right now, yeah, then they can win this thing. But they've never done it before. So you're taking a pretty big gamble if you're hopping in right now in that 12 to 25 to 1 range. You know what I'm saying?
Where are you at with Mason Miller? You give him a legitimate shot, or is he just a complete write-off?
No, I don't see. And look, I think I'm in the very small minority that can try to make the case for, or I have tried to make the case before for relievers in many, many years. Like last year, I thought Felix Bautista had a great case before he got hurt, and nobody wanted to buy into that. Should Mason Miller on a potentially, last place team, if he stays with Oakland, have a chance to win it? Yes, I firmly believe that he should be in the mix. All pitchers should qualify, in my opinion. But will voters look at that and say, this is absolutely real? We have to vote for this guy. If he stays in Oakland, I don't like his chances. There's also the possibility that they could deal him. Then he would go to the National League and then forget about it. But what if the Orioles cave and they say, here you go, here's 2 of our prospects. Our bullpen stinks. We can't rely on the back end because of the Bautista injury. We can't rely on Kimbrel. So here you go. Take 2 of our guys, and then he goes over to Baltimore. If this continues, they win the American League East. Then what do you think about Mason Miller?
That's probably the scenario that would have to take place, where he'd be a little bit more on the radar, where he's with the Orioles and he finishes with just a ridiculous, like a 0.8 ERA, to the point where you can't ignore him. And again, Diaz was unhittable a couple of years ago. You brought up Batista. It's just, I don't know that it'll happen. It's happened before. I think, what Gagne was the last one in 2003?
Yeah, so it's been 2 decades.
Yeah.
I'll give you one other guy to look at. Maybe not quite yet, because his number has been like sub 20 to 1 the entire year. But he was awesome this week. He outdueled Skubal. That's Cole Reagans for Kansas City. I would say monitor him very closely. Like if he puts that 12K performance together with another one where it's 6 or 7 strong, couple hits, maybe 1-0 runs, whatever it is, and has a big strikeout number, I would pay attention to his live start next time he goes. If that's happening, you might want to grab a piece of him then.
Yeah, and this is about the time last year, maybe even a little later, that Snell started to take off. Because I remember I bet him the day of the NBA draft, so late June. So, and Robbie Ray was 150 to 1 at the All-Star break a few years ago, and he won it. So there's plenty of time for these guys that really aren't in the mix, and odds-wise are way back there to still make a run here.
Yeah, the problem I have with at this point, and typically I would say absolutely that's the case every single year. There are so many guys in both leagues who were long shots already to begin the year that have had such a great 8 or 9 weeks that most, I think, of the big numbers are gone. I'm looking, the National League race to me is just going to be tremendous the entire year. It's, like the top 5 or 6 guys right now are incredible, but I think the most realistic long shot in quotes that I can make a case for right now would be somebody like Dylan Cease, but he's only like 13 or 15 to 1.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Wheeler has been awesome. Look at Chris Sale. I'm not going to be surprised if he wins it at the end of the year. If we voted today, I'd actually give it to Ranger Suarez. Number 2 might be Imanaga. So again, sustainable or not, I'd probably lean no with all these guys. Though in the National League, the one guy, maybe if you wanted to just put him on your radar, and he went this week and he wasn't great. The wind was blown out. He was taking on the Braves, but it's not just this year. It's going back to last year. That's Javier Assad for the Cubs. Now it seems like this guy really is legit, and the Cubs staff in general appears to be really, really good. Not going to have a ton of wins. He's got 4 on the season right now. They don't hit a lot. He also, like, his K numbers are not going to completely jump off the page, but everything else pretty solid. He's like the one guy true shot right now, either league I could make a case for.
And do you buy the idea that a rookie will have a hard time winning both awards? Does that hurt Imanaga? Does that, boy, Skeens at 60 to 1 seems like a stretch, but that stuff, it's not a stretch. I don't know. Do you think the rookie of the year, do you think being a rookie makes it harder to win both these?
I would lean yes, but what if it's continued? What if Imanaga, like, if we're getting to August and the guy has an ERA of 1.2?
You got to give it to him. I mean, if that's, you can't, who knows what these baseball writers are thinking, but I mean, I think it'd be ridiculous to not give him the award just because he's going to win rookie of the year.
Yeah. Now, Skeens, man, I can't put it this way, because of what we just talked about and how much equity these pitchers have built up over the first 2 months. I really did not want to buy into betting Skeens for the National League Rookie of the Year, but I finally caved. I think it was the day that he was called up, maybe the day before he was finally called up. I had so many people say, Mitch, you got to grab a piece of this guy. I'm telling you, you got to grab a piece. But my comeback was, look at Imanaga. Look at his teammate Jones for the Pirates. Look at Yamamoto for the Dodgers. Like, he has to overcome 2 months what they've built up. I finally caved. I bet him at 16 to 1. Can he do this? Like, I know he had 100 pitches last time. Are they going to trot him out there for 100 pitches every time, 6, 7 innings? Also, I've heard others, like Jared, we had Jensen Lewis on from MLB Network Radio this week, and he said possible 6-man rotation, all that kind of stuff would ding his chances, would it not?
No, I think it would. So, all good points. Some bigger picture stuff here. AL East and NL East, both probably really good races here. Who do you like in each one?
You're a Yankees guy. I think I believe in the Yankees more than you do.
I believe.
They're good, man.
They are good.
They're really good. And they're going to get, I mean, think about it this way. They're getting Cole back at some point.
Yeah.
Sooner than later, you would think. That is, I like this analogy. That's like making the best midseason move that any team could make by, like, all of a sudden acquiring him when you think about it like that. The staff has been awesome. And when you can go Soto, and he's going to come to New York and put together this kind of a year back-to-back with Judge, that makes that lineup as good as any. That's like Dodgers good at the very top of the lineup. So I think they're really, really good. I was a huge believer into Baltimore last year and starting this year. Mildly disappointed. What do you think?
I agree. I think, the media loves a rebuild and they like the idea that you go from being bad to being good and all that stuff. But I think they got a little, it got glossed over a little bit. Like, I know it was 3 games, but they got buried by Texas in the playoffs last year. They just had a sweep against the Cardinals. So they're on my radar. That's for sure. They're on my radar of like, all right, maybe we're a little too quick to crown them. I know they're good. Everyone would love to be in their position with their young talent, but let's see.
Yep, totally agree. National League East, I mean, Phillies they're doing this offensively. I saw a stat, they're like 29-4 last 33 games or something like that to their team total over. Well, I don't know. I guess I've been sleeping on that completely. They've been a first 5 machine the entire year. And I get it. You got to factor in the injury. Spencer Strider's out for the year. I don't want to count the Braves out, though, of the East yet. They have so much talent.
Do you worry about, hey, no Strider, Acuna hasn't looked like Acuna, or, hey, we'll look up in 2 months and they'll be fine?
Yeah, I think we'll look up in 2 months and they're going to be fine. But what do the Phillies look like once Turner comes back?
Yeah, good point. Really good point. A team that's kind of flown under the radar too. I just mentioned Texas beating Baltimore last year. Texas it's weird because nobody really thought, even though they won the World Series last year, nobody considered them the best team. Nobody considered them the best team this year. A couple games under 500. Do you think they get on track and they fire and they're a legit contender again, or is this kind of like a 1-year wonder deal?
No, I think they can get back. That's going to be based on health, though, I think, too. Garcia recently banged up. Langford's been banged up. Other guys have been hurt. Seager misses time, but that's kind of his MO. I think they're going to be fine. I also think the Astros are going to kind of be okay. I think they're going to be fine. And they're coming on a lot lately. That's another market, too, like the American League MVP. who do you jump into the market with right now? Jump into the pool with, because I mean, it's like every other day, one of the candidates is outdoing the other guy, right? Soto 2 home runs, Tucker 2 home runs, Bobby Witt 4 for 4 with a home run and like a triple and a couple of RBIs. Judge, who I think you pointed out, what was it, 10 days ago?
Yeah, 16-1 week and a half ago.
It's a great grab by you. Great grab by you.
Small grab, but I at least identify. It doesn't mean he's going to win, but that was. I mean, I think he had 10 or 11 homers at the time. The leader had 13. It's like, yeah, he had a bad April, but if you're gonna have a bad month, the bad April is a good time to have, and a
Sure.
good time to have it. And yeah,
And that's, I mean, you're basically buying low, which is what you want to do.
yep, no doubt about it. Any other teams you're looking to either buy on going forward, fade? Any other baseball big picture stuff here?
Yeah, I mean, so it was around this time last year, I think maybe a little bit earlier, when I bought in on the Rangers. That was to win the American League and to win the World Series. That was actually, DeGrom was injured. I thought he was going to come back. We did not have the news that he was going to be out for the year when I bet them. So I wasn't quite as confident when I got that news, obviously. But if you fast forward right now, and going back to the NL Cy Young discussion for a second, if they add a bat, and this continues with Imanaga and Assad, Will, you know what it's like come playoff time. I mean, ask the Dodgers, ask the Braves when they get these buys, and the Cubs don't have a buy. How does that pitching not look phenomenal and like winnable in every game that they're going to play? I don't care who the competition is.
It's a
I
good
was
one.
looking, I saw 18-1 now. I didn't bite on it, but I saw 18-1 to win the NL last week.
Yeah, it's a good one. And you mentioned these teams with the buys, they get a little, whatever it is, they get tight, they get rusty. You get that wild card team or division winner that doesn't have the buy, and they come in, they play fast and loose. They got games under the belt, and we see it all the time where they make a run.
I could say the same thing in the American League, by the way, if the Mariners add a bat or two, because that staff and that
Yes.
I want to love the Mariners. I'm not there yet, but I want to.
Yep, I totally agree. Even the guys Wu and Miller at the end of the rotation, and the hard throwers in the bullpen, they have a superstar in Rodriguez. Yeah, it's that is a good team, a dangerous team.
Yep.
Basketball, Wolves, Mavs. I just thought we'd have a long series. I would defer to Minnesota in 7 just because they have the extra home game. Dallas now up 1-0. Does that change how you feel about the series? Who did you like going in? Where are you with this series?
Well, game one was a total coin flip. I have both teams on futures to win the West, so I'm just going to kind of sit back, I think, and not do anything game to game. Just hopefully just let this play out and get this over with and get those tickets into the account. I also, for the record, I had basically 3 or 4 teams in the West at bigger numbers throughout the year to win it. So in the East, I got clobbered with the 76ers and the Heat going back to last year in the summertime. So that was no good. However, total coin flip game in game one. I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen moving forward with the combination of Edwards and Cat. I think they're going to obviously correct it. They'll get better. You're not going to get that same kind of performance, like 6 out of 9 from downtown from McDaniels. Is Kyle Anderson going to play like that the whole game? And I do think, despite the Wolves being the best team with a bullet defensively the entire year and having the defensive player of the year, I think they might have a problem on their hands with the way that Jason Kidd rotates the bigs down low. And it's basically 20 minutes a game for Gafford and Lively. And so they just go balls to the wall the entire time. And Lively has been phenomenal. And I just, that he could create many problems. And they're going to be, how do they defend? They were doing the drop coverage in game one. I think they're going to have to bum rush Luka a lot more than what they did, and depend and they're gonna have to make the other, like, I think they actually go back to OKC's recipe, even though they didn't win. You have to make PJ Washington and Derek Jones beat you from outside. If they do, they do.
We're recording this before game 2 of Celtics Pacers. Are you of the mindset whoever comes out of the West is the favorite, or is that overstating a bit and Boston is still the better team and rightfully favored against either one?
They'll be rightfully favored. However, I think the Wolves match up exceedingly well against Boston. And I think I'm pretty convinced the Mavericks do have the best player in that series with Luka over Tatum.
Yes.
I give Dallas a really good chance in that series. Indiana is they're fun against anybody. So it would just to see, like, could they outlast, the other teams by scoring more points? And what would that offense look like against Minnesota's defense would be kind of a fascinating tale of the tape. But no, I think either one of these teams can beat Boston.
I know David Stern passed away 4 or 5 years ago. If it's Indiana, Minnesota, we'll find out if he's really dead. He might come out of his grave and put a stop to Indiana, Minnesota. I don't know if that'll fly.
He'll come out of
Uh,
his grave and strangle Adam Silver.
yes, for sure, absolutely. What do those series lines look like, by the way? If let's assume it's Boston against either one. So Boston, Dallas, Boston, Minnesota. What do those look like?
What did I see? Adjusted. I think I saw Boston like minus 230 range against Minnesota and slightly higher than that against Dallas. But it keeps
It's
coming
heavy.
down.
It's heavy. It should be. I mean, they should be favored. It shouldn't be by that much. The move there, if you saw Boston minus 150, minus 170, to just grab them. And hey, if they move on, then you could just take whoever's in the West plus a couple, like a game and a half, 2.5 games,
Sure.
something like that, and just set up a nice little middle. That might be the way to do it.
And I
I,
will say that people love Tatum. Tatum right now, I think when you compare like his number to win the MVP to the Celtics money line price, he's even money. He was plus 130 to win the NBA Finals MVP. Now this series is not over with, obviously. It's only one game in, but you know how that's a lot of people are going to make the case for him because he's going to put up numbers at the end of the day, regardless of how he
yep.
plays throughout. And if they win, he's going to like his rebounding's been awesome. And so if he can turn it around a little bit come clutch time, he's going to be the first guy that the voters are going to look at.
Yep. Last couple ones, hockey. Florida up 1-0 on the Rangers, and then Dallas and Edmonton, game one Thursday. What are your thoughts on either series?
I have the Stars on several tickets to win this series and to win the West. And the more I read, the more people think it's a pickup. And that's kind of the price anyway, when you consider home ice for four games overall for Dallas. They're not that big of a favorite whatsoever. I think there's a clear edge, though, in goal for the Stars. And people have just been sleeping on them the entire year. I understand the Oilers' power rating overall. They've been awesome since the beginning of the year, since it kind of corrected, I should say, at the beginning of the year. And McDavid and Draisaitl are as good as it gets. But I give the edge to the Stars. I think they're going to be skating in the Stanley Cup final against, it looks like Florida after game one. My goodness, the Rangers did absolutely nothing in that game.
Anything Conn Smythe interest you at this point?
I took Kreider for the Rangers before game one. He was available at 80-1. Although, again, I have nobody on the Panthers, which is going to be, that's a dangerous proposition at this point. And Heiskanen for the Stars, I got him at 12-1. And I got Bouchard for the Oilers at 60-1 the other day. So he's got 20 points as a defenseman. And if that continues, I think he'll have a real shot to win if the Oilers get there.
Heard a couple of people mention Wyatt Johnson. You buy Wyatt Johnson?
Sure. Guy's
Yeah.
been awesome in the playoffs.
Yeah. Interesting. The last one here, NFL schedule. Anything trigger a bet? Anything that you say, hey, I see the schedule now, I have to bet this.
I like the way it broke up for the Bengals.
Me too.
I got to give credit to my cohort, Mike Palm, for that. He pointed that out right away, and it kind of won me over with that. I think their schedule shakes out pretty well for them. I would actually look at a dual forecast in the AFC North, where it's like an exacta box, and you could bet the Bengals and the Ravens to finish 1-2 in any order. And I think that was plus 125. The Browns schedule is an absolute meat grinder. And what the NFL did to the Pittsburgh Steelers is just, I would have started over from scratch before hitting submit on that thing. It's one of the most brutal schedules you're ever going to see. Now that's going to go one of two ways, Will. Either they're going to win like 7 games and they're going to go under their alternate win total, or somehow they survive it. They're over 500 again because Tomlin's never been below 500. And if they come out smelling like roses after that 8-game stretch to close the season, where every game is a divisional opponent, sandwiched in are the Eagles and the Chiefs, then I think that Mike Tomlin is going to be a real live shot to win Coach of the Year. It's going one of two ways. There's no in between there.
That's a really good point. I don't think he's ever won the award either.
Yeah.
Because I was on that team last year when they were overachieving. You know, and they fell off. They lost those horrible games. So was it to Arizona, which I guess that wasn't that bad looking back, but that little 5-day stretch where they lost at home to Arizona and home to New England on the Thursday night, that really derailed their season.
Yep.
Although otherwise he would have been live for that award.
Yep, totally agree. That really, I think the Packers schedule is difficult. I really like the Lions this year. I'm all in on the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, you always worry when a team, first of all, I mean, the way they lost to the 49ers, the way some of these teams, like Green Bay's lost, Detroit's lost, and then really all the teams in the NFC, with the 49ers blowing it to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But the Lions does feel sustainable, where good offensive line, good weapons, solid quarterback, defense improving. It doesn't feel like there's that low. It feels like they have a high floor, Detroit.
I think so too. Awesome skilled guys. They address their weaknesses in the draft and in the offseason. Campbell is a little too unreliable because he's so emotional. But the play caller there, Ben Johnson, is phenomenal, and he can get pretty much any job that he wants moving forward. Turned down jobs this year, and I'm with you. I'm in the Goff camp. I don't think 40-1 is awful to win the MVP. I'm in on to win the NFC. I think there's 49ers, by the way, that stretch from weeks 7 through 13. No favors, horrible rest disadvantage like last year. I think they go under their win total, and I think another team might be live to win that division this year.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And again, it'll be here before you know it. Just get so excited. You look at these lines, the spreads, the futures. It gets you fired up to
Oh yeah,
know it's not that far away. Mitch, I appreciate a few minutes here. Let everyone know where they can find your stuff.
it's Follow the Money. That's 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern time. YouTube TV, DraftKings Network, VSiN.com is the website. On X at Mitch Moss Radio as well.
All right, Mitch. We'll hopefully do this again down the road. Appreciate some time here.
Thanks, pal.
All right. Thank you to Mitch Moss. Enjoy your Memorial Day. We'll be back Monday. Talk some more NBA, baseball. Talk to you guys then.